Are you dying to be perfect? Well, let me put this another way. Is trying to be perfect killing you? Hey family, this is Reginald Martin of Kametaphysics Sacred Alchemy, where ancient wisdom becomes modern awakening. So this idea, family, of trying to live life in this perfected state, okay? It is a religious notion. And I say that because when we were Christian, the standard was always Jesus, that we had to live up to this imagined standard that Jesus was. No matter that we saw, in the Bible, Jesus turning over tables and beating people with whips and stuff like that. The standard is that the perfection was this like demure, just happy-go-lucky, never get angry type of an individual, okay? And that did everything right. All right, so what it amounted to was an impossible standard. And I'm going to tell you now that if you bring that type of mentality to your spiritual journey, you're going to be living through your Christian belief system again. And this is what I say, you have to really pay attention to your beliefs because, and where they come from. Because what's going to happen is that you're going to feel, when you're trying to live that way, you're going to end up being conflicted, in many areas of your life. You won't have the ability to live life authentically, okay? And I've always said that, really a good life, when you're able to live life authentically, unapologetically, and on your terms without guilt or shame, okay? Family, when you're doing that, you will be in balance and peace, just living your life. But if you're trying to live the way that some standard that is from outside yourself and outside who you are being or who you are, then it is going to be a detriment to you, whether it's going to be mentally, that ends up turning into psychological problems, that turns into physical problems, because you end up creating so many energy blocks that end up manifesting themselves as illness, okay? And that's very real, family. So I know that there's a Dr. Gabor Maté. He did wrote a book a couple of years ago, I think, called The Myth of Normal. And in his book, he related a lot of disease to like 4 characteristics that people had that ended up causing them issues. Like one of them was Lou Gehrig's disease, which is it's an autoimmune disease, but he linked autoimmune diseases to these characteristics. I know one of them was being selfless, sacrificing themselves, for others, and doing so in a way that they just didn't take care of themselves, whether it be mentally, physically, whatever it might be. And so that idea alone was a very big problem, and he linked that to many of the autoimmune diseases, or linked that attitude to many of the autoimmune diseases. But it's important that you have to recognize that being you in the moment is who you're supposed to be, and it's important that you be authentic in the moment, because even when you're interacting with other people, the relationship is always a symbiotic relationship. You both are in this dance together, so to speak. That is sometimes your teacher, sometimes your student, but you're always flipping those roles. Okay. So when people think that, like for instance in Christianity, we were taught that, like getting angry is not a good thing. You know, being aggressive, you know, is not a good thing. But family, if you think about anger and aggression from a purely functional standpoint, and I'm talking about universal laws, family, the underpinning of what we call creative, a creative aspect, or the creative aspect of the universe, aggression is a part of that. Okay, now hear me out. So when I say this, it's something that is created. Anything that is created, it has to be broken from a stasis. Okay, in other words, it has to come from, if it's coming from our mind, it has to break through a barrier. Okay, that's an aggressive act. Okay, if a flower has to bud, okay, to break from its bud and flower and open up, okay, that's literally an aggressive act. Okay, so functionally, creation and aggression are two of the same things. Okay, they're the same thing. So the problem comes in is when we're not being authentic, then that energy builds up. Okay, and once that energy builds up, the danger is that it can explode into violence. Violence is a distortion of aggression, because aggression literally helps you to set boundaries. So if somebody in your family is doing certain things to you, sometimes you might have to tell them off, you know, try to talk to them, you know, whatever it is, but you have to let them know and set the boundary. And if they don't respect that boundary, then sometimes you got to, you know, cuss an MF out. I mean, you know, so they get it, because sometimes they just don't get it, you know, until you take it to that level that they can understand. Hey family, an addendum on the idea of getting angry or cussing somebody out or whatever. The reason why I say that is that, again, it's about setting boundaries, okay? Setting boundaries that other person needs to recognize. But the main thing here is to understand it's about self-care, okay? And again, as Christians, a lot of times we were taught that self-care, or putting ourselves first in the moment, is being selfish, okay? But self-care is a requirement, family, if you want to live life healthy and whole. Okay, you have to be able to take care of yourself. Okay, and I like to use the analogy of when we're on an airplane and they are giving you instructions. If the oxygen mask drop down drop down in the cabin, if you have a child or something with you, that you first put the mask over your mouth or over your face first. Okay, so in that instance, you have to take care of you first, so that you can make sure that you have the ability to take care of the child. Because if you try to take care of the child first and you're struggling to get their mask on and you black out or blank out, then they're in peril as well. Okay, but if you take care of you, then you can help take care of others. And you should use that same idea just in life. You know, that's a great analogy for life. Take care of you, and then you can help others, okay, from your place of being whole and healthy. Okay, so it's not just the idea of, you know, you being mean to somebody. When I say unapologetic, being mean to somebody doesn't mean or being unapologetic doesn't mean that you're mean to people and you never apologize for it. It means that you appreciate your being and you don't apologize for being. Okay, and that's a lot of times what we end up doing is we literally are apologizing for being who we are. Okay, all right family, I'm going to continue on my walk. Now, is it right or wrong? You know, again, in the moment, you just have to be who you have to be. Now, sometimes, obviously, you can say the wrong things that can end up hurting people and injuring them in some kind of way. You know, if that does happen, then you have to be big enough to come back. When you recognize that, you have to be big enough to come back and apologize for it. But in that moment, you needed to be who you are for that person to understand your boundary. Okay, I hope y'all following me here. And this is especially, you know, there's a lot of people a lot of times that want to, you know, be judgmental of you and of your actions, and they want to impose their standard of their belief system onto you, you know, and saying, you know, you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. But that's their way of believing, not yours. Now, if you grow to a certain point where something does become a part of you, that's a different thing. You know, it's something that you have earned. Okay, it's a lesson in growth that you have earned. But if you're trying to, there's a way that we used to think about this as Christians, where we would simply try to adopt the idea without really having the wisdom of the lesson behind it, you know? And we try to live in a way, again, that we thought was perfect, but there was nothing behind it except the box that you were supposed to fit in. There was nothing behind it except the constraints. Okay, that's another way of putting it. So when you're living that way, family, it's inauthentic, and being inauthentic ends up injuring you. Okay, so I'm saying, you know, you have to live life in a way, well, you don't have to, but it becomes a lot easier and a lot more beneficial when you are able to be authentic in the moment and be who you need to be, because ultimately you don't know if you're dealing with another person, you don't know what their lesson necessarily needs to be from you. A lot of times we egotistically want to think that we know that we know why we're in a relationship with a person, why we're supposed to, you know, what we're supposed to teach them and stuff like that. But sometimes it just has nothing to do with what your way of thinking about it is, okay? So there's all kinds of ways that people learn from each other, and a lot of times it's not the actions that they learn from, it's our way of being that we learn from, you know. And this goes to people who ask a lot of times, you know, well, how should I teach these ideas to my children, you know? And I say, you have to be them, you know. You don't talk them to your children. Let them see who you are, okay? Let them know who you are. Let them see how you are living, and then allow them to make the choice if that is the way that they want to live. That's how you teach them, you know? And that's the way that I took with my children, because at first when I started learning a lot of these ideas, of course I wanted to impart those ideas to them. But my daughter, you know, she's probably, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old. And she goes, Dad, I don't want to learn that. You know, family, that hurt. You know, I mean, she's just basically like, pow, pow, you know, slap me, you know, mentally. But my lesson is that she wasn't trying to hear me tell her to do nothing. You know, it was about being something, you know, and that's what I needed to understand from that. So my lesson from that was, I can't force my beliefs onto my child, you know. And again, in Christianity, that's just something that we normally, you know, try to do. We indoctrinate our children with these ideas, okay? But the point that I want to make here is that you really have to get to a point to where you're living life authentically, unapologetically, without guilt and shame, on your terms, okay? And things will just be a lot more simple and easy for you, okay, to do. You will live a life more balanced when you're living from that place, of just being authentically you. That also goes into really learning how to love who you are, because another layer to that is that we had to think of ourselves as broken, or in need of fixing, and all of this stuff. And when you're living from that state, then you can't love who you are, because you look at yourself as broken. Who loves something broken, So you can't even love your own self. So a lot of the religious ways of thinking really come from this external locus of control, where you're having to live in somebody else's box of expectations. Family, you have to set your own expectations about who you are, and trying to live life from being perfect is going to be an exercise in futility, because perfection, if you really think about it, perfection really means stagnation, okay? It can't grow. It's reached a state to where there is no more development, all right? And the universe as a whole does not operate that way, okay? So you will be going against the laws of the universe of creativity and growth, okay? So perfection is going to be the opposite of growth in a lot of instances, because you can't, because you're reaching a state of really a state of stasis that has no potential for growth, okay? So that's it, family. So just be you in the moment. Sometimes that might mean that you might have to, in order to move from depression, that means that you move up to anger, and when you move to anger, then you take action, and you go and tell somebody something that you wouldn't have before. So our emotions in that sense become guiding posts for us. And and I know I'm going to get these people in the comments, oh no, you should have, family, do it, work it, be it, and see how it works in your life. All these theories about, you should never get angry and all that kind of stuff, how does that make you feel? If you can't even express yourself, or something is wrong with you expressing yourself in the moment. Don't live through other people's boxes, okay? So it helps you to just be. And in the moment, you have to be. In that moment, if you have to cuss somebody out, and it could, again, it might be hurtful, be big enough to apologize. But in the moment, you have to be. All right, family? I hope that's making sense. Let me know in the comments, and I'm going to go ahead and continue on my walk, and you guys have an amazing day. Reginald Martin, out.